Well, we're back, 20 Lore Pro. We're live here, and they're ready to go into the finals. We're excited to see how Decandio does against Jeremiah. This should be a exciting time to see how Charlie's Collectible Show's 10K ends up. What are some of the best lines that Decandio can do going into this matchup to try to get underneath Jeremiah's Ruby Sapphire plays?
Well, one of the first things that he can do is get first seed in the event, which he did. So being able to be on the play in Game 1 and Game 3, assuming that one of them is given up, then that should already help, given the aggro deck being able to get on the board a little bit faster is pretty important for going underneath, the Be Prepareds and the big Sisus. Being cognizant of when those board wipes can come down, and knowing that, Pete does not always save you, the big Sisus are problematic. Really, it's just kind of play Daisy into Piglet and then get some lore in and hope that you're able to close before, the haymakers come down and kind of shut the game out. As we've seen a lot of times with the blue-red deck, once it gets to that critical mass of 7, 8, 9, 10 ink, all of a sudden every turn is just delete everything that your opponent is doing, send everything straight to the Shadow Realm, and just win with whatever they've got into Lucky Dime.
That's something that we'll have to see kind of play out here. Just like you're saying, Decandio is the first seed. So the way that he can get underneath, like you were saying, he has the opportunity to do it twice. So we'll see how it goes. We're here live in the finals. We're all set here with Decandio versus Jeremiah. Again, congratulations to these two competitors. They have done a great job to get here so far in today's tournament at Charlie's Collectible Show in Stone, Georgia. Again, huge shout out and thank you to our partners that come alongside to work with 20 Lore Pro. GFQ Underground printed those beautiful playmats that you see before you. They have worked with 20 Lore Pro closely in all of our events to print every single mat that we have offered to the community and to these competitors as prize support. So thank you, GFQ Underground and Diamond Ink Apparel, for doing the artwork.
Alright, so Decandio kicking it off with exactly what he would want, which is a Daisy. It is the most aggressive turn 1 play that he's got in his list, and specifically in this matchup does hold a lot of weight, given that, you just want to push lore early. That's your best route to victory, is to get to, 16, 18 before they start blowing up all the board, because if you can, the bonus is now on them to stop you, and it is a much worse spot when you are in, I have to banish everything that my opponent does for the rest of forever, then I have a little bit of wiggle room. So a brawl goes to the bottom, double Daisy. Well, this, wow. I've played against this before. It is impossible to fight against triple Daisy. So I would say that this is exactly what Decandio was hoping for. That is an insane amount of lore pressure from Decandio on the play. I don't know if there is a line that blue-red can take that is good enough to fight against this. We'll see what he's got, but Azurite C certainly helps, getting a little bit of ramp in.
I think possibly Human Sisu shift early to try to get these characters off the board and whatever else Decandio is going to be playing.
Well, Jeremiah's going to have a lot of cards to work with, because he just scoops up 3. Did grab a Human Sisu, so he's going to be able to remove at least one of them, but I would suspect that Decandio is going to deploy some additional threats this turn.
This is some quick lore gain.
So it looks like there's maybe a Mr. Smee probably coming down here. Yep. Looks like it was a lot of 2-drops in Decandio's hand. There's a Lilo, a Smee, possibly something else. Probably going to play the hand Sisu just to stunt the bleeding a little bit, but there is a world where you try to ramp more as well. This is one of the reasons that the Azurite C is such a powerful card, because it does allow you to have an unexerted ink, since it just allows you to play an additional one. I would suspect that this Tipo is getting inked.
I think that's a big Sisu, so there is that shift line available.
Ink's a dragon, that's also fine, doesn't really do much. Takes out a duck. Now, Decandio's still going to go up to 14, which is a ridiculous number, and as long as we can answer the Sisu, there is no shift available. Draws another dragon. Get rid of the how far I'll go. Now, if there is an answer to this Sisu, I would expect it to come down here. Now, it looks like there is.
Oh, and a Lilo in hand, too. Oh, my god.
Yeah, that is an insane... an insanely important play to make here. If you allow that shift line, that is one of the few ways that this deck can not necessarily recover fully from this, but if you shift out that Sisu and then just trade into the Smee, all of a sudden, you know, your big Sisu is alive still, and the whole board is clear. Yeah, they're at 14, but you're mostly stable. Now, we're so far from stable, it is absurd, right? Our best thing that we can do is take out one of these cards. They go up to 18. That's not it. It's gonna be really hard here. You know, 18 is a very, very tough spot to be, since, I mean, that's almost every card in his deck. That Lilo that's in hand, you have to kill that every turn for forever.
Yeah, this is, I mean, I almost want to say textbook what you want to see in Amber Seal against Ruby Sapphire, in the sense that if you could draw it up to get 3 daisies in, the only thing better might be having 4.
Double Brawl, I mean, that is a start, but still, we're going to go up to 16 here. Now, it looks like Decandio just drew a Dwarven Mine. I would absolutely expect that Dwarven Mine to come down this turn. Yeah, Mine and then Doc discarding Lilo, draws 2 cards. The Mine is huge here because it gives you a secondary type of threat in this location. So now, if Jeremiah's play is to be prepared, which is exactly how much ink is available, the Mine is still going to gain lore every turn. So yeah, that is an answer, but like, is it? So what makes locations? Locations have always been sort of a little scary for the Be Prepared decks. You know, as just a completely different type of threat, there's not always anything that you can do to it. You know, we can't afford to Maui and then also hit the location because Smee's still in play, the stock is still in play, we have no characters. This is a tough spot to be in for Jeremiah to actually recover. The Triple Daisy is just such a hard spot to be in. He's recovered nicely from it for what he can do, but you know, not being able to develop anything to the board shows some of the downsides of cards like Brawl versus, say, the human Sisu, right? So we Popsicle to see what else we can draw, which... So we can take out the Smee with the Tipo and this Vital Sphere, in theory. So we Tipo, ink an extra card, play Vital Sphere, activate Vital Sphere on the Tipo, gives it Rush and 2 Strength, and crash into Smee, I suppose. Yeah. That's what we gotta do. I mean, we're in the finals. You take every line that you can to try and have a victory here, and then we Visions to see what we can do from there. So now there's a Maui Shark or 2. Could have been an actual Maui as well. Sends it back, but Candio's going all the way up to 18, 2 cards in hand still. This puts the Lilo in play, which totally makes sense to me. Quest with Doc goes to 18. We just have such a diversity of threats here. I would expect like Calhoun, just as another, not the most exciting body, but a body. And then that still keeps, I believe there was a Kita that we drew for turn, so 3/5 that quests for 2. We don't have the lore or the ink for it right now, but it could be a decent follow-up if the board does get wiped and the mine gets taken out. Now, if the board gets completely removed, which it could, you know, with something like a Be Prepared, which I don't see that he's got. He's got the human Sisu, or sorry, the big Sisu.
And the Maleficent Dragon, but
it's just not enough.
Yeah, this is...
Like, we needed that Vital Sphere to be able to, you know, clean up the board, but the Calhoun is there. Calhoun prevents that from being real on its own. Yeah, that'll just be it.
That was such a fast start from Decandio on this one.
I mean, if you're playing Daisy in your deck at all, if you're playing Amber and you're playing Daisies, what you want is Daisy, 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 Daisy. You just want to dump all your Daisies into play. That is how you draw it up if you put them in your deck, right? So, if you can, do that every time you're playing every game with Daisy. You know, especially on the play. On the draw, maybe you want a little bit of other stuff, but on the play, that is just one of the most aggressive starts in the game. Daisy having an impressive amount of willpower as a 1/4 versus a lot of the other cards being just, you know, sort of that 1/1 or 1/2 for some of the more aggressive lore. 1/4 is just such a big body that, you know, that's exactly what we were hoping for.
Well, congratulations to Decandio on getting game 1 here in the finals. We're going into game 2 with Jeremiah starting us off on the play. Excited to be here at Charlie's Collectible Show for their Lorcana 10K with over 218 players here. Excited that we had this tournament. It was increased from an 8K to a 10K due to the number of participants. If you miss any of today's rounds, don't worry. They will be available immediately after today's tournament on our Twitch channel as a VOD and on our YouTube. We'll also have those edited later this week for your convenience. We also have the tournament available in different languages if you have a friend in a different community or you speak that language and would like to hear it in that translation. We have it currently live in Chinese, French, and German. Later on we'll have it in Spanish and Japanese. We want to thank those commentators for giving us their analysis of the gameplay in those languages. Huge shout out to Charlie's Collectible Show for hosting today's tournament. Following the finals, stay tuned. We will be following this up with a 2K tournament. Very excited to be here at Charlie's Collectible Show in Stone Mountain, Georgia.
Alright, players just finishing up altering their hands. It looks like both of them sent back a decent chunk of their cards. 4 for Jeremiah, 5 for Decandio. Now we'll see how the openers are. A lot of our players at the top tables have had sort of that strong 1, 2, 3 sort of lines. You know, that's kind of how this game plays out sometimes, is if you have your curve, it can go really well. If you don't, it can be pretty tough. So, Ink Samawi plays a Popsicle. Decandio's hand is very full of piglets. Does have a Daisy Duck. Ink's Sakita, which is terrible in this matchup, except for Ink, which it is, so not too bad here. Runs out the Duck. May just be playing piglets for the rest of forever. Does have visions on 2 instead of getting ramped. They must not have hit any off their mulligan. Sees a few in here, though it is a little off curve. Sometimes it's still correct to grab a ramp when you can, depending upon the texture of your hand. Now, whether that's TPO because you have too many uninkables and you maybe want to get rid of a lucky dime that's not very good, or if you have enough inkables and you go for the Azurite Sea, it does replace itself, as opposed to being just a 1-2 on board. Since it's Daisy Duck on the board, the 1-2 is a little less impressive.
And to note right there, we did see a Be Prepared go to the bottom.
Gets the TPO anyway off the Daisy Duck, of course. Yeah, there's a Be Prepared on the bottom, which is notable because it's unlikely that we're going to get there, at least not anytime soon. There are more visions in the deck. You can dig down pretty deep in these.
And that Maui Shark, it does make some of those actions, if it comes out, able to be recurred, but...
Now here's Piglet number 1. So a Brawl would take out this Piglet, if possible. And since they weren't able to ramp, this does limit their ability to actually play that ramp if they play Brawl this turn. So what this is forcing is that decision point of, do I limit their aggression and just also stymie my own game plan? Which it looks like they decide to do. So this just means that Jeremiah's normal game plan is a lot slower, but it slows Decandio down as well. So gets a Flaversham off of the Daisy. The Daisy triggers have been a little brutal. Play out a Happy and a Piglet, so another Piglet. This is number 2. And luckily, because they have not ramped for Decandio here, because they haven't gotten any additional ink in play, it's pretty safe to just go a little wide. So now here's our Azurite C, and now we know that there is a Tipo in hand that we grabbed off of one earlier, so it could be a double ramp type of turn. Which does mean that Piglet's getting in for 3. Which is kind of scary, but sometimes you have to make that concession to set up for a better game plan later. Opts for the hand Sisu. Sorry, human Sisu rather, to take out the Daisy Duck. So as long as Decandio has any character, which I assume that there is still that other Piglet in there, we can get 3 in out of this Piglet. It would not surprise me either to see the Mine taking out the hand Sisu. Human Sisu. Why are there so many Sisus? The Daring Visitor. Just to make sure that there's not a shift, because the shift is a disaster. Yeah. So we'll do this and quest for 2. Now, that does set the Piglet up for a Maui, unfortunately. But that shift line on 6 ink is such a disaster that we cannot allow that to happen. Now, the Maui Shark is interesting here. Or could be interesting. They could get to 6 and just play Maui Shark straight up, which would give them the access to a Brawl basically every turn.
Yeah, I kind of like that thought.
It's interesting, right?
Recurring.
Decides to double ink and still play regular Maui to take out the Mine. Which is scary, because now the Piglet's still in play. Which I guess that's kind of the benefit of the Mine here. It's possible that they overvalued the Mine from Jeremiah's side, as opposed to just taking out the Piglet here. Play a Smee and a Lilo. Get in for 4. Go up to 8. Now, this is Jeremiah's game to win here, because at this point, right? Sorry, it goes up to 10, rather. Because I don't know if they tracked to 2 from last turn. At this exact spot here, right, if he can clear the board, then Decandio's on 1 card. And this Lilo doesn't line up very well against Maui or Maui Shark especially. Lines up terrible against Maui Shark because it just gives a target every turn. Does do Sisu. Big Sisu, not a big surprise here. Declines to do the Lilo, I think because his hand has a Dock in it. Plays out Smee and Dock.
Wow. At least put himself in a good position with the card draw to be able to play out characters. I mean, the Lilo in the discard pile, able to come back later, but this Maui is looking to challenge.
Looks like he's got a referee in hand, so Pete. Hand is a hand Sisu, human Sisu in hand. We're going to do this Flaversham first, I think. Draw 2 cards. Draws some blue cards, it looks like. Tipo, and I believe... is that Hideaway, maybe? Mostly something that is unimportant here. opts to take out the dock just to clean up the board a little bit more. Slows down what he can. Gains 3. Now back to Decandio, who drew 2 cards last turn. Now we know that one of them is
the Pete.
The Pete.
He's thinking about Lilo now before drawing.
Because if the other card is inkable, he could do that, but I don't really know how important that Lilo actually is going to be. Since there's so many characters in play already, like Maui is just going to chomp it. And he has 3 cards in hand, so he certainly is going to have plays this turn that can be made. Yeah, Cindy plus Pete. And then pass. So this is 2, 4, 6 being represented. And no actions can be played. So that is pretty much just Lucky Dime and nothing else can be played here. Do we have 9 ink? It is pretty tough to see. It looks like there's 9 here. So that is Dime, gain 3. Go to 6. Quest with Sisu, probably. Go up to 9. Probably the other Sisu as well for 10. Maybe even the Flaversham to go to 11. You just kind of get everything in. I don't know if I like eating the Lucky Dime here.
Yeah. Any other item?
I mean, I can appreciate wanting more resources to work with, but the Lucky Dime gives you access to a lot of reach here to actually close out the game. So if we go to 11, we, I guess, weren't quite presenting lethal the following turn anyway, so maybe it just doesn't matter that much. Because we're only going up to 10, 11 here. So that would have been 3, 6, 7, 8. So it would have only been 19. So perhaps that's the consideration, is it just doesn't matter. Because we're not going to be able to finish with Lucky Dime anyway. So we do put the Lilo into play. Draw. We have a strength.
Wow, that's a big strength.
It is a big strength. That likely is why they considered the Cinderella as a respectable line here, because now the Cinderella just is able to sing and deal 5.
You could take out anything but Flaversham right now on the board.
And I'm not even sure that Flav is that big of a deal. Looks like there's another Pete in hand. Now, that item is very scary here, because it allows the Maui, or in some cases the Sisu, to trade pretty far up.
Yeah, the Shield of Virtue just for 3, letting you untap your character. I mean, it can challenge twice.
Yeah, it lets really any of these challenge twice, which, since I don't believe that Decandio can take out more than one of these large characters, you could take Pete and that's interesting. So you could sing here, take 2 of the characters and take out another one, or just smash with everything. That's maybe okay. Okay, we'll see what's up. I suppose no matter what, the Flaversham would be able to double challenge into a Smee. Oh, was that another hand Sisu? It looks like it was. That's a good draw for Jeremiah here.
Yeah, this is going to be a cleanup turn for Jeremiah.
So that will be able to take out, I believe, the entire board. Well, with no ice blocks, there's a lot of 3s in play. Does Jeremiah have enough ink to untap and then take out the other? Okay, and then still play the Dragon. I think that they do. Well, they certainly will after this. I think they have to ink before they do, or they have exactly 8. Kind of hard to tell.
Yeah, I like taking a pause there to draw instead. That way you can have more cards for... I mean, more information to make plays is always better.
Oh, we have the shift line, of course. They can just take out the whole board. Oh, that's a disaster then. Yeah, I wasn't even thinking about the shift line. Yeah, that's just such a huge blowout. Yeah, so I was miscounting. It didn't matter that we had 8 because we could shift it for 6. And then still challenge the Pete, which is a disaster. So Ops to Lilo, we do have the Pete in hand still, I believe. Ink Happy, play Pete. So they are going to still have to challenge this Lilo or remove it somehow. Oh goodness, their hand is just... Sisu. All 4 Sisus, the big Sisus, have been found here. So it looks like we're going to probably go to a game 3. I cannot imagine that Decandio is going to be able to beat just runner big Sisus here.
I went to go play an Azure at Sea, but can't due to Pete.
At least we have not done any actions. That'll happen sometimes because Pete is a does not always have any visual indicator, so as long as you point it out, it's fine. But doesn't really matter. Another Sisu comes down, takes out everything, and there just is not enough lore to be gained for Decandio here. The quadruple Sisu, once you have enough lore to be able to play them, enough ink to be able to play them, not only lets you push lore because they are, 3 pips on them each, but it also, just wipes the board.
And to have multiples of them. I mean, that was all 4 of them that game that we saw, or 3. I'm sorry, all 3. Those are some great cards to have in your hand. Great characters. Well, we want to thank y'all for joining us here today for the finals of Charlie's Collectible Show's Lorcana 10K. We had over 218 players join us, so it went from an 8K to a 10K. Great to be here in the finals with Decandio, the reigning champion for Charlie's Collectible Show. Defending his title, he will be on the play against Jeremiah here with Ruby Sapphire. We just want to thank, again, Charlie's Collectible Show for hosting today's Lorcana tournament. They currently are talking about doing another one maybe sometime in March. We'll have to see. But 20 Lore Pro will be at Hunter Burton Memorial March 14th that weekend. We will be doing our yearly charity tournament with Hunter Burton Memorial, raising money and awareness of the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. That's a charity that we really appreciate being able to join alongside and give to build awareness of suicidal ideation within the gaming community. So we just want to thank everyone for their support during this time, and for really GFQ and Ink Apparel. Both of them made these beautiful playmats that you see before you on the screen. A little homage to Azure at Sea. These will be given out to the top 4 of the 10K, as well as the top 2 at the 2K tournament. So thank you again to Ink Apparel, which you see there on the screen, their logo. They do the artwork, and they've done just a great job so far of doing these beautiful, beautiful playmats. Thank you to GFQ Underground for printing them. Really appreciate them, as they print a lot of mats for us. So thank you, GFQ Underground, for all the hard work that you do, and for coming alongside 20 Lore Pro.
Alright, so I assume Decandio is looking for a start similar to what he had in Game 1, with triple, maybe quadruple daisies, perhaps, daisy into piglet into, another 1-drop plus another 2-drop is also a very strong opener. Jeremiah, on the other hand, is looking for generally a 1-drop, which in this deck is typically just items, into some sort of ramp action, maybe a Tipo, maybe an Azurite Sea, followed up with, starting to get some removal in, because at that point you have to sort of stem the bleeding a little bit. as long as Jeremiah is able to survive until, you know, that 7 or 8 ink, then, you know, it's generally pretty good for blue-red. And this is one of blue-red's generally better matchups. Once they're able to fully stabilize, it is hard to push like random lore. There's no goats, there's no white roses. You know, the locations don't gain a lot on their own, and they're easily removed by Mauis and things like that. So, you know, we'll have to see.
Yeah, I think the first game that we saw, those three daisies right off the bat, that doesn't always happen. But when it does, I mean, you see the results of it. But
let's go with a Cindy this time. Not quite as aggressive. Still a 1-drop, though. Like there's a popsicle for Jeremiah. Definitely one of the better starts. Does get rid of a Flaversham. So either has multiple Flavershams in hand or is light on uninkables, or opting to keep more of the removal in hand. You know, if your uninkables are just your removal spells, you kind of have to hold on to them. And here's a Smee. So looks like a pretty standard Steel Song type opening here. Jeremiah does have the turn 2 ramp after the turn 1 popsicle, so kind of how you draw it up if you're the Sapphire Ruby player. Draws the card, looking to decide what we want to ink in addition here. Could be the popsicle, since we've already got one. It's tough. It does look like he's pretty low on inkables. Yeah, decides to keep the second popsicle over the Vital Sphere. It's one of the tricky spots sometimes, is you have a lot of nice inkable cards. You know, Vital Sphere's inkable, Popsicle's inkable, Brawl's inkable. But sometimes you kind of need all those cards to win. So it's hard to just send them all out to ramp up a little bit faster.
As we've seen, the Brawl, especially in this matchup, card you definitely need.
So uses Cindy to sing, dealing some damage to Daisy to draw a card. Now it does look like Decandio has, looks like maybe Doc, Rapunzel, Lilo in hand. Quests with Smee, get a little bit of damage here. I would imagine, oh no, it's not. It's another Storm in hand, not a second Doc. So I would guess that this Lilo is unfortunately going to get inked. Or possibly an alternative line is that you ink the Rapunzel and then you play the Lilo this turn. That is, I think, our two considerations here, is do we need this Lilo more than we need this Rapunzel drawing extra cards? Now, this Daisy may not be in play next turn to be able to Rapunzel. Now, our Smee will still have something on it, but we also have to draw an inkable next turn in order to be able to Rapunzel at all.
Yeah, this is tough, because we know that the Daisy is fragile to Brawl, the Sisu Visitor, but are you going to need that card draw later on if this match gets to the mid to late game?
Okay, just decides to run out the Doc. Interesting, okay. Now this is kind of scary, because now we don't actually have any real inkables. Now, one heads-up play that this does allow us for is if this Daisy gets removed, which is very possible, we have another Storm in hand. So we can sing the Storm on Doc, Doc's a 1-3, and then still find an inkable and play the Rapunzel to draw 2. Which I think is a consideration, because we're assuming that a Brawl or a Sisu's going to come down. And then now, as long as we find an inkable in the top 2 cards, we can still make that Rapunzel play. Which I think is pretty likely here. Well, we decide to actually just hit there instead. I think that's reasonable, since we now have a target on the opposing side. And we can, assuming that this Smee lives, we can still get the 2 damage. Now we have Kita, which is not ideal. Okay, just opts to draw the 1 card, protect the Smee, draw the card, and quest out for another 3. So not the most aggressive start. Now there is a lot of lore on the field, which does help. We're getting pretty close to that danger zone where, you know, the board is threatening to get cleaned up. Now, we know that there's a Pete. So Pete can protect very easily against Be Prepared, right? Stopping all the actions. So if Jeremiah doesn't make a play that's too scary, we have some options. Now we know that there's a Maui Shark and another card in hand for Jeremiah. It's a Pete. Sorry, and a Piglet. We have another Inkable. Looks like maybe a Lilo. Could be Lilo Piglet.
That'd be his second Lilo inked.
Yeah, if he inks that. So how much are we questing for? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Puts us to 10. If we play Lilo and Piglet, then we're basically dead to Be Prepared. It's not great. If we ink the Lilo, okay, this works too, alright? So we'll ink the Piglet. It's a little less aggressive, but it does keep the Lilo. So I think that's pretty reasonable here. And it makes it so that Be Prepared is not able to be an out. Now we know that Jeremiah doesn't have one. Now we're representing 4, 5, 6, 7. That puts us up to 17, which is not quite lethal, and not quite in that range where every Lilo is a permanent threat forever. But Jeremiah's really not doing much to stop this. You know, Maui Shark is a good card, but with that Vital Sphere not here, we got rid of it earlier, it can't clean up anything right now. I think if he has anything that draws cards, I think he's debating, can I afford to draw cards to find the answer? Looks like there's a Flaversham, but there's no actions this turn, so any brawls and things like that just don't work because of that Pete.
Does go with the Flaversham, and
there is a Be Prepared in hand now. That is scary. Alright, so it's Rip Pete or it's gonna be pretty brutal. Was that another Pete for Decandio here?
I'm not sure. It is an Amber card. Even a Rapunzel there to draw to.
Rapunzel would be good. I mean, we have to assume that this board is going to get wiped, because otherwise we just win. So those are we have to prepare for that outcome if we can. So playing another character onto this board doesn't make a lot of sense unless it is valuable enough that it, you know, like a Rapunzel to draw 2 cards would be worth playing in this spot. Pete would be worth playing. Doc would be good. You know, it has to be worth committing an extra card to the board, because we're already presenting like super lethal here. If they don't Be Prepared, the game's over. If they don't Sisu, which they could do, Sisu would take out everything but the Pete, basically. No, they've got an ice block, so Sisu's bad. So we have to assume our board's getting wiped. So if it's a card that doesn't do something immediately, I don't think we play it. It is a Pluto that we play upright. I like that, actually. Because we don't need to bodyguard these characters. I don't think that really matters. We'll make sure that the lore totals get updated here. It should be,
I believe 17.
Should be 17. So we draw 2 cards first. Unfortunately, we know that there is a Be Prepared. Is going to be able to take this out. It's almost certainly the play that has to be made here. But again, with no Vital Sphere, the Shark doesn't quite lock the game out. So it just gets inked, which makes sense to me. We could Azurite C and try to draw another card and also get another lore. We should still have, or get another ink. There should still be enough left over to do that. We may not have enough cards to justify that. Okay, so that all gets removed. Almost certainly we're replaying this Lilo here. Yep. Into Pete.
Pete.
Okay?
Oh my goodness, that's good. But we know that there's things that could take out that Lilo.
Not many, not without that Vital Sphere.
It's true.
That Vital Sphere got inked on turn 2.
There's just the Brawl and the Sisu with Ice Block.
No spells can be cast, so this doesn't work if that's what he's trying to do.
Right. Just Brawl, or just Sisu.
Pete was an insane top deck. This does not work. Hopefully he stops him before he does it. He did. Get Pete. You have been petered. There is nothing that our opponent can do. It is over.
This is it.
This is the game.
Champion.
Back to back, because our opponent appears to have Ice Block, Spell, Tamatoa. Crab ain't it. Eat is a heck of a card. Yeah, it looks like it's just Hideaway, Crab, and 2 things. Ice Block and the Azurite C, and just it isn't it.
That is it.
Decandio back to back.
Back to back reigning champion defends his title. B Decandio is your winner for Charlie's Collectible Show's Lorcana 10K. Congratulations. That is amazing to see that he has come with Amber Steel and has won over Jeremiah with this Ruby Sapphire list.
Decandio's just built a little different, you know?
He's been on Amber Steel, I mean, for a long time. I don't know. He's played some other decks, but most of the time he's on Amber Steel.
Always those color combos. They have some of the most impactful cards. The individual cards themselves are very strong. There's a lot of draw. Like the dock has been really impressive this weekend. And yeah, that's great.
Well, we just want to thank everyone for coming here today to watch the Charlie Collectible Show's Lorcana 10K here on 20 Lore Pro. We are live here on Twitch. We have coverage in several different languages, from Chinese to German to French. Again, thank y'all for coming and watching today's 10K tournament. Stick around because we will be live here in just a little bit with the 2K tournament. We're just going to take a quick break to get ready for that. But again, congratulations to B Decandio. We're going to see if we can't get him for a player interview to talk about his experience in today's tournament. I know he has a flight to catch, so that may not be possible. But again, stick around. We will be live here for this 2K here in just a moment. Again, thank you to Charlie's Collectible Show for hosting today's tournament, Diamond Ink Apparel, and GFQ Underground for printing and doing the artwork for those playmats, and you, Jebas, for joining us. Really appreciate you and your commentary.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and we had some really good games. You know, even when the matchups looked a little dire, having first seed going into the top 8 matters a lot. You know, running out the triple daisy when it mattered the most, that's not too bad either.
Well, we will have all of those top 8 decks for you, all of those color pairings for you here in just a little bit. Give us a little bit of time to make sure that we can get those from the tournament organizers. Again, thank you for joining us here with 20 Lore Pro. If you're not a part of the Discord, feel free to join us. We have tons of deck discussions. We're almost to 6,000 members in the Discord alone. So great place to talk about all things competitive Lorcana. Again, thank you so much for joining us, and we cannot wait to be here as we watch Charlie Collectible Show's Lorcana 2K. It's got a 4-second delay.
When you start talking, I will, so.
Hello and welcome to 20 Lore Pro. We are here with our back-to-back Charlie's Collectible Show 10K winner, B Decandio. How are you doing today?
I'm good. It's been a long weekend, it feels like, but it's been great.
Yeah, congratulations on your big win. I mean, it's great to win it once, but to do it twice and in a row, I mean, congratulations. That's just
Thank
amazing.
You.
How did it feel piloting Amber Steel? A lot of people were saying we didn't see a lot of Amethyst Emerald representation. They didn't think that Amber Steel would do well into this player field going into what the meta has formed into after EU Continentals. But how did it feel today?
It felt pretty good. This isn't traditional Amber Steel. This is something I've been playing in the Cross Continental Challenge with some updates. I'm sure the deck lists are going to be somewhere, I'm guessing, right?
Yes, they'll be available right after this tournament, really.
Yeah, but I initially started this format saying, hey, traditional Amber Steel songs didn't get really much of an upgrade. It kind of just got a few tools you can maybe utilize, maybe swap out Piglet for Lilo to see if you have more staying power against Be Prepared. But then I kind of wanted to instead break my fundamental rules for building decks to experiment and try things out. So I said, what if we try and build it without Aerial and Whole New World? What if we just try and build a more aggressively slanted deck, and where does that lead me? There's a bunch of different avenues to go to, Mufasa, much more bigger things, maybe Pride Lands with Stitch, and also Dwarven Mine. And I ultimately settled on Dwarven Mine, giving it a bunch of versatility in mirror type matches, also extra answers to Diablo, additional types of threats to present to the board and don't get Be Prepared away. And yeah, I mean, this is, I think, 4 cards different than the deck I've been playing for the past couple weeks. I just added 4 big Kitas to the deck. No shift line, just you want it as a 5-cost card to play, and it's pretty great. It kind of ices the board against any kind of board stalls where you just are both sitting there. They don't want to quest because they don't give you Rapunzel targets. You don't want to quest because they'll kill all your things most likely. So when you play Kita, you just turn everything sideways, and then the game ends next turn because they can't kill anything. So that was going to be a real change. But yeah, I played against Ruby Sapphire, I think 4 times. The person I played in the finals, actually, I beat in round 2 as well. I beat it each time. I think I lost to the Mufasa Amber Steel deck. I didn't know they were playing Big Cinderella, and I kind of got by that, shifted on play, and I was like, oh, well, that's game 3, and that got me for sure. But yeah, no, I mean, the field changes. Amber Steel is a good deck, especially in best of 3. But yeah, I mean, I played against pretty much everything else too. Ruby Amethyst a couple times, Amber Amethyst. I played against Ruby Emerald, which was really cool. It's like an action-based deck with Big Shark and Prince John, a bunch of discard elements. But no, it was good. It was a good field. A lot of different decks to play against, and I think proactive strategy is where you should be, and you can be pretty proactive when you play a bunch of daisies on turn 2. So it's great.
I was really impressed to see there was a match on camera where you had the Dwarven Mine in play, and you had a second one.
Oh yeah,
and you were able to shift cards across. I mean, that was really impressive to me. Did you feel like it was a good inclusion and that it did play out the way you wanted it to in its use?
Yeah, it's really good at in board stall games, especially against Amber. It was against, what was it against? It was Amber Steel, or was it against?
I think it was Amethyst Steel.
Amethyst
right?
Steel.
Yes,
yep, you're right. Yeah, they don't have any outside of Merlin or Mim Fox, the only thing way to rush it down. And I think I made a mistake in that game too. I think I could have moved it back and forward, but that's literally the first time I think I've ever had 2 mines in play before, so there's too much power for me to understand what I was doing with it. So I'm sure I made a mistake. I think I strengthed something when I shouldn't have, when I could have just moved it back. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's the same thing. But no, long day, but it's a very strong card in conjunction with knights. It's not a dwarf-centric thing. There's not that many knights you can search, for all the knights, but Happy and Doc happen to be the 2 pretty good ones. So,
and Doc, I mean, talk about a knight and a dwarf that did huge things for you this tournament. Yeah. I mean, we saw where you'd play cards out, play the Doc, draw into 2 more right when you needed them.
Yeah.
I mean, can you talk to us a little bit about the power of Doc and how it altered games for you?
Yeah, it gives you kind of alternate game plans of how to play out the deck. Normally, you don't ever want to go out of cards because pretty bad when you're playing an aggressive deck. If they just Be Prepared your board away, you're kind of in bad shape. But Doc lets you refill, lets you plan your hands out. It makes it a little awkward sometimes with Rapunzel if you kind of have to choose which one to go with. Like if I have a Doc in my opening hand, I don't really want Rapunzel. If I have Rapunzel, I don't really want to mulligan in too many cards to find a Doc accidentally and then be kind of torn on which way to go, because there's a bit of uninkables in the deck. There's 16, so it's a little on the high end for me, but most of them are the aggressively slanted cards, so I'm not too worried. I'm going to play them out most times. But yeah, Doc is incredible. If you ever chain them together, it's fantastic. If you accidentally draw 4 of them in your hand before you can play one of them, make it make sense it's bad, like it happened in the quarters for me, but I still won that game. I played all 4 Docs out, and I only used the last one for card draw, so it's a little awkward there, but still good.
That's something about the card I didn't know until today, or just forgot, that you could play Doc and then play another one and say, no, I don't want to draw off the first one. So that's something, knowing your cards, knowing the game state, and going into it, that's critical to playing any type of deck that you're going to pilot.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Well, Decandio, we really appreciate you interviewing with us here today with 20 Lore Pro at Charlie's Collectible Show. I know that we're going to be seeing you here in the future. 20 Lore Pro is going to be competing in the Lumineers Champion League Friday the 20th. You're one of our team members.
Yeah.
So it'll be exciting. Me, you, and Zach, we're going to be competing on camera. So
Fun. I think on a deck I'm playing, so let's make that work.
I'm going to need some practice with you getting ready for it. But I'm excited to do that with you. And again, congratulations on your victory here today. Thank you everyone for joining us. We're here with 20 Lore Pro. We will be live here in just a little bit with the 2K tournament. And we just really appreciate y'all watching today. And we'll see you here in just a little bit.